You're hanging out after hours with Matt Anderson, presented by Inside the Gamecocks.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Late Night Gamecock Show. So happy to have you here. It is March, and it is a fantastic March because the Gamecocks are going to go to the NCAA basketball tournament on the men's side, and obviously the women are going to go to the NCAA tournament as well. The women are going to be the number one overall seed on the women's NCAA tournament side of Bracket Madness, and then you're going to have the men's basketball team as well, and they will be playing in March in the NCAA tournament. The last time the Gamecocks played in the NCAA tournament was obviously the Final Four run, which we all lovingly remember. It was such a fun time for Gamecock fans, and the opportunity to play in Greenville in that particular season for the first and second round, Marquette, and then taking down an ACC foe from years past in Duke. And we'll see where the Gamecocks end up this year in March Madness. There is an opportunity to end up in Charlotte. I've seen Salt Lake City. I've seen Spokane. I've seen every different regional site that exists. I've seen that so far for the Gamecocks on the men's side. But before the men's basketball tournament starts, we got to get through the SEC basketball tournament. And I'm going to go ahead now and pull up the bracket for you. It was a tough break for the Gamecocks to finish tied for second in the SEC regular season and then kind of have the rug pulled out from under them due to the tiebreaker scenarios. And you can look back at a couple of games during the regular season and say, wow, if they had just not let that lead against LSU slip away, they might be the 2 seed, might have a share of a SEC regular season championship. But that's sometimes how the ball bounces on the hardwood, and the SEC was ridiculously loaded at the top this season. And you had teams like Arkansas who kind of fluttered towards the middle to the end of the season. Missouri was a projected NCAA tournament team. They didn't get it done this year. And, unfortunately for them, I don't think they won a game in the SEC this entire season. But Gamecocks have an opportunity to get some more quad one wins, have an opportunity to get some hardware, have an opportunity to cut down some nets in Nashville this weekend. And I think that the Gamecocks have a pretty good opportunity. I know I've talked to some folks that don't like South Carolina's kind of draw in the SEC basketball tournament, but they're going to play the winner of Vanderbilt versus Arkansas. That game is tomorrow at 6 p.m. So if you want to figure out who the Gamecocks are going to play and do some scouting on your own, 6 p.m. tomorrow night on the SEC ESPN network, you'll see Vanderbilt and Arkansas play. They will play South Carolina on Thursday, and that game is scheduled for about 25 minutes after the Mississippi State LSU game ends. And I've seen this 25-minute thing for a while when it comes to conference basketball tournaments. I would go ahead and say that just assume this Mississippi State LSU game is going to finish up around 2 o'clock, 2:15. I wouldn't imagine the Gamecocks taking the court until the earliest around 2:45. So if you're planning to take off work, that afternoon to watch the Gamecocks play against the winner of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, I would kind of plan for leaving the office about 2:30 if you have a 15-minute drive back. But that's big time because the Gamecocks then, if they win that game, they'll face Auburn. Auburn is a very different team on the road and at neutral sites than they are at home. And I've been saying this for a long time. That Auburn game, just flush it. I know it's hard to just flush a game where your team loses by 40, have all the momentum in the world, just come off Kentucky and Tennessee wins, and you go on the road at Auburn, a top 15 matchup in the country, and Gamecocks seem to lay an egg. But that was a shooting performance the likes that I don't know if that's happened 5 times for an opponent in Gamecock men's basketball history. So I don't hate the Gamecocks matchup against Auburn. I think they'll be the same thing that Alex Jones and I talked about prior to that game. It's just a battle of wills. It's a battle of possessions. It's a battle on the defensive side. And the Gamecocks didn't do much wrong against Auburn. Auburn just hit 60% of their three-pointers, 55% of their twos, and pretty close to 90% of their free throws. So I think it'll be a much different environment. And if you look back, and you guys know I have all these notes from every single game, that game got out of hand in the last 10 minutes of the first half. The first 10 minutes of the game, the Gamecocks were right there with Auburn. So you never look past an opponent. Arkansas, as we know, was a preseason top 10, top 15, top 20 team in the country. They defeated Duke earlier this year, and say what you want about Duke. I think Duke's a pretty good team. And so Arkansas has the talent to make a run, but we all know what's happened at Arkansas this season and just how, there's a lot of rumors about their head coach wanting to make a change after the season. There's a lot of rumors about the locker room and what may or may not be going on there, and just chemistry issues that are running through there. And those guys without an NCAA tournament opportunity may just want to just finish the season. They may not care. And that's a tough thing. And I've been around college basketball teams that the majority of the team is just ready to end the season. They're done. They don't really care about the SEC tournament, their conference tournament. So just be mindful of that. But I've also seen teams that come out and say, look, this is our last chance for the NCAA tournament. Let's give it all we got. Let's try and win 4 games in 5 days or 5 games in 4 days, whatever the math ends up being. I think it's four games or 5 games in 4 days, whatever, 5 games in 5 days. It's not a softball tournament. But after that, you look at it in the Gamecocks, if they get past Auburn, and they'll have to get past Auburn, they'll likely play Tennessee. Gamecocks have played Tennessee well in both games, winning one, losing one. And then after that, it's a crapshoot down at the bottom where you have Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Georgia. Look, Kentucky's going to be a tough out in this tournament because they always bring 1 million people to Nashville, to Atlanta, to Jacksonville, wherever this tournament's been in the past. So the Gamecock fans, if you get past Auburn, you get to that SEC championship game, it's not that far to get to Nashville. It's only about 7 hours away. So I would encourage y'all to get there if the Gamecocks get there. But big picture right now, and I always like to talk big picture when we're discussing the NCAA tournament with any team, but it's really fun this year to talk about it with the Gamecocks, as we have a lot of loyal fans and Gamecock fans that have been just dying for an opportunity to get back to the NCAA tournament. And the Gamecocks will be there. When you look at the Gamecocks resume right now, the computer metrics are never going to be kind to the Gamecocks. And I know that if you're a member of the Big Spur, if you watch Inside the Gamecocks with Phil, JC, and JB, you know the conversation about the net. You know the conversation about Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, Evan Mia, all of those sites. But the one thing that I've said consistently this season is the Gamecocks beat the computer more often than not. And look no further than the Gamecocks, record against the spread when you look at what Vegas is doing. And what Vegas does is Vegas mirrors what the computer metrics are saying. And the Gamecocks, for whatever reason, have beaten those metrics. I can think of a number of reasons. The first reason is because the Gamecocks started so low. The Gamecocks started in most of these metrics around 80th, 90th, 115th in the country. And if you look right now at BPI, which is like ESPN's, they're 49th, Ken Palm 47. So to think about the ground the Gamecocks have actually made up from the start of the season to where they are now is huge. And these computer metrics, they take a lot of numbers from past seasons. They take a lot of numbers from home court advantage. And neither of those two things are kind for the Gamecocks over the last 4 to 5 years. So all that's baked in. And that's why the Gamecocks have had to really climb up these computer metrics and just beat the computer metrics every single week. And that's what the Gamecocks have done. I think the other issue that's really hurting the Gamecocks right now is Colin Murray-Boyle being out for an extended period of time to start the season. When you think about Colin Murray-Boyle and ESPN, SEC Network, Pat Bradley, they're all calling him CMB now, which I think is a heck of a lot easier to say in a show like this. CMB, I like that. CMB was not available for the first couple games of the season, and by all reports inside the program, CMB was the best player on the basketball team prior to the start of the season. So him getting mono, all of those numbers and all the computer metrics, KPI, BPI, or not KPI, I'm sorry, KenPom, BPI, Evan Mia, Bart Torvik are still including those games without CMB. So that's pretty tough. Yeah, Tyler. So the computer metric takes in past season success because the majority of coaches around the country are not turning over every 1 to 2 years. It's usually a 5-year sample size where you see what a coach actually has. And then on top of that, there's a home court advantage that plays into all of these computer metrics because a home game is different than a road game. Most teams get somewhere between 1 to 6 points for a home game, when they're looking at Vegas numbers. That's how impactful a home environment can be when you have one of the best in the country. And that's what, the CLA has not had for a while. Now, do they have it this year? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, from the Kentucky game on, that place has been electric, and that has led to runs for the Gamecocks. So, yeah, Tyler, the computer metrics take in, the past 4 or 5 years because they want to look at home court advantage. They want to look at coaches' success year over year and how that translates throughout the season. So that's why the Gamecocks are kind of in the spot that they're in with the computer stuff. Now, the computer stuff that I just mentioned, all those things are different than KPI and strength of record, SOR. So KPI and SOR are only based on this particular season. There's no past data that's in there. So if you look at the KPI for the Gamecocks right now, they're 19th in the country. And when you look at their strength of record, they're 9th in the country for an average of 14th, which is a pretty daggum big deal. It's a really big deal for the Gamecocks to be there because that means that if you just take this season, that's where the Gamecocks are performing. And I see Big Red up here in the chat as well talking about the Gamecocks record in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Gamecocks have an 11-4 record in Quad 1 and Quad 2. The big bugaboo for the Gamecocks right now are the Quad 3 losses. And those Quad 3 losses are by a combined 6 points. And I haven't taken that deep dive into all the other teams kind of around the Gamecocks that have Quad 3 losses. But I would imagine that I would go on record saying that I could never imagine a scenario where the other teams that are around the Gamecocks that have 2 Quad 3 losses are by a combined 6 points, an average of 3 points per loss. That's something that's kind of phenomenal for the Gamecocks. But just looking at it right now, projecting their seed, I think the Gamecocks could be anywhere from a 3 seed to a 7 seed, based on the rest of the country and what happens going forward. Looking at Purdue's 19-3 in Quad 1 and Quad 2, 11-3 in Quad 1. Connecticut, 11-3 in Quad 1, 18-3 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. Houston, 13-3 in Quad 1, 17-3 in Quad 1 and Quad 2. So that's why you see those 3 teams as, honestly, like far and away, they've already locked in number 1 seeds. It's just a matter of who's going to be the number 1 overall seed. And then you go down a little bit further, and you see North Carolina, you see Tennessee. I think Iowa State has a chance. Marquette has a chance. I don't think Kansas has a chance right now. But you kind of look at these numbers and you try and figure out who can be the last number 1 seed. I think it's ultimately going to come down to North Carolina, Tennessee, and Iowa State. I think Iowa State probably has to win the Big 12 championship to get all the way to a number 1 seed. I think that Arizona with their Quad 1 or Quad 3 loss can't get there. So, as you kind of go through those numbers, I think that the 1 and 2 seeds are pretty much just a matter of fact who's going to be it. We kind of already know the top 8 teams in the country based on resume. Probably know the top 10 to 11 teams as well. So, Michael, let me pull up the SEC bracket really quick. So I want to go back to this. The SEC bracket that I'm looking at right now has Vanderbilt and Arkansas playing in the top half of the bracket. And then you have, so Phil's got it right here. So you have Kentucky, you have Florida, you have Alabama, kind of like the other big 3 that the Gamecocks are battling against, with Tennessee and Auburn and themselves, making up, that top 6. So, they wouldn't play Kentucky until the final game if Kentucky and South Carolina went that far. So, Phil, thank you for bringing that up. You might as well just leave it up for a little bit as people have an opportunity to look through everything here. But yeah, going back to what I was talking about, the bracket, the Gamecocks are able to get to Saturday or Sunday in the SEC tournament. I think that, winning the SEC would probably take them from a 4 seed to a 3 seed if they get to Saturday. One of the biggest heartaches I have is that the SEC basketball tournament, the championship doesn't matter as much as you would think, because once Saturday happens, there's only, I think, the Big Ten and the SEC as like the major Power 5 conference championships that have not been decided. So you're really only looking at 4 teams difference in the overall bracket and overall seed lines. So, I think if the Gamecocks make it all the way to the championship, they're probably looking at a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. If they win, they could probably get all the way up to a 3 seed, just depending on what happens around the rest of the country. But take nothing away from what the Gamecocks have done this year. The Gamecocks have 25 wins. They have an opportunity to get to 26, 27 wins. I think the program record is 27 back in that Final Four run, which included 6 wins in the NCAA tournament. This has been a magical year. It's been one of the most fun years I've ever had covering the Gamecocks. Watching the Gamecocks, you guys know I was a ball boy for the Gamecocks back when BJ Mackey and Melvin Watson and Larry Davis had that magical run, and I've been chasing that feeling the entire time that I've been, a Gamecock fan, a Gamecock alumni. It's been amazing to watch. I mean, I still remember the Mike Boynton team that went to the NCAA tournament after starting like 19-1. So I can't tell you how excited I am for the Gamecocks and what they're doing right now. And, I see Craig in the chat. What's up, Craig? Good to see you. Junior Glazner, or JR Glazner, we have a tough draw, but we have a tough team. Look, my big thing about the SEC this year is, pick your draw. I mean, the best thing to have been would be in a top 4 seed, so you have a bye. But outside of that, you're going to have to go through a Tennessee. You're going to have to go through an Auburn. You're going to have to go through a Kentucky and Alabama. I mean, it's interesting to me to see this because I think Florida is that dark horse team to get through Kentucky and Alabama, because if Florida, wins their game against the winner of Missouri and Georgia, well, they're playing Alabama. Alabama hasn't been setting the world on fire lately, and Florida, I think, is a pretty daggum good team. And if Alabama doesn't outscore them, which they have to outscore everybody because their defense is atrocious, you could have a Florida-Kentucky matchup, which I would be there. I mean, I would love to watch that matchup, and then that would be a war. That would be a lot of shots made. That would be something where you get to Sunday in the SEC tournament, and whoever comes out, Tennessee, Auburn, or South Carolina, you kind of think those are the only people that can come out of the top half. I think the Gamecocks actually got a break here, because that's going to be a war for Kentucky to get past Ole Miss and A&M. They probably should, but A&M already beat Kentucky this year and scored like 98 points in overtime doing it. Florida's no slouch. They lost to Vanderbilt, but Alabama, that's a tough one. I'd rather be in the matchup that the Gamecocks are in, because Auburn doesn't play that well on the road or on neutral sites. And then Tennessee, you won at their place, they won at your place, and now you're on neutral. Just let the best team win. That would be a lot of fun to watch on Saturday. So, JR, obviously Arkansas can score with anyone. I just wonder where Arkansas's heart, mind, body, soul is right now at this point in the season, and what they're playing for. When you have a coach that's been rumored for 4 weeks to be wanting to leave, you got assistant coaches that are probably trying to see if they're going to go with their head coach or they're going to find another job. You got players in the locker room that's been chaotic all year. I'd be interested to see what happens with Arkansas. I know that everyone thinks the Gamecocks are going to play Arkansas, but I would not be surprised for Vanderbilt to carry that momentum they had after their win over Florida this past weekend and knock Arkansas off. And then it's South Carolina, Vanderbilt to play, probably Tennessee. So, you got Arkansas, you got Auburn potentially, you got Vanderbilt, you got Tennessee, you got to get there. But that's a lot of fun. So Jordan asked, what's the biggest difference you see in us winning a couple games in the SEC tournament versus coming up short Which player makes the biggest impact on the outcome of the game, in your opinion? Whew, that's a doozy, Jordan. For me, I really think that it's Michi. I think that Talon's going to give you what Talon gives you, and Talon is the ultimate floor general. I think that Colin Murray Boyle is going to give you what C&B always gives you. The Gamecocks can win without BJ Mack having a great game. I don't know if the Gamecocks can go on a run without Michi Johnson being the Michi Johnson against Florida. And look, that's crazy. Like, I'm not saying that, but the Gamecocks need Michi to get to 15 to 20 points a game, sprinkle in a 25-pointer, a 30-point burger. That's what the Gamecocks need. They need Michi to really be assertive, hitting his shots from long range, drawing the defense out, and then attacking the rim, drawing fouls. I really do think that it's really Michi that's going to set the tone for the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. And when you get to the NCAA tournament, we'll talk a lot about this next week. We don't have to put the cart before the horse right now. But, just thinking about it, the Gamecocks are a tough team to prepare for. They're a really tough team to prepare for. They play tough defense. They grind out every possession. And, Lamont Paris, and if you have guys and gals have not seen the interview from earlier today on Inside the Gamecocks with Lamont Paris, I would encourage you to go back and watch that. He gave them a good 40 minutes of just straight content and insight into his program. And a lot of people think the Gamecocks play offense like Wisconsin. And, I've kind of wondered that all year because you try and find the blueprints. Like, the fingerprints are all over every assistant coach wherever they go when they become a head coach. But the Gamecocks don't necessarily play like Wisconsin. And when Lamont said that today, it really made me think because, the Gamecocks find ways to get shots all over the court, but it's not a heck of a lot of, screen and roll, screen and drive. It's 4, 5, 6 passes before the Gamecocks score. And Wisconsin traditionally doesn't, just drain the shot clock. Wisconsin usually gets good opportunities from all over the court, but it's not normally with 5 seconds left in the shot clock. And that's the way the Gamecocks have had to play this year. And it's been really, really fun. Let's see here. Jordan says, I think Michi first and foremost, but you also need Studi and Mac to come on strong to get us a win a few games, in my opinion. Yeah, Jordan, I agree. I think Michi first and foremost, you're 100% right. I think after that, it's kind of 2 out of the 3. And when I say 2 out of the 3, it's Studi, Mac, and then Jacoby Wright. And if 2 of those 3 can just kind of hit the shots when they're open, you're probably in a good spot. And look, Zach Davis is coming alive before our eyes right now as well. And, with Zach, he doesn't take bad shots as in they're forced. He might have a handful of shots this season that came early in the shot clock, but he was open. I think that, taking those shots as a player gives you confidence, whether you make them or you miss them. And missing them and your coach still allowing you to shoot them, tells me that he's making them in practice. And he just needs to see 1 or 2 go through. And that might have happened this past Saturday at Mississippi State. So James says, Matt, of the potential number 1 seeds, are there any that you think we don't match up particularly well against? Basically, which region should we hope to avoid? Let's just start at the top. I think that Purdue is a really complete basketball team. I don't know how the Gamecocks would match up with Zach Edey. And it's a little bit different with a Zach Edey versus like a Dalton Knecht. Because Zach Edey is going to be in the post, and there's really nothing I think the Gamecocks can do there. So he might go for 30, but you better make sure that you don't let 2 or 3 other players go for 10 to 15 points because you will lose that game. I think that it would take a perfect game for the Gamecocks to beat Purdue if Edey goes for 25 points and 18 rebounds. Connecticut is a team I don't think the Gamecocks match up very well with because they push it, they run it, and they score effectively. They have big guys. I think all the number 1 seeds are pretty daggum good. You talk about that top 3. I think Houston would make life miserable for the Gamecocks. I think that Gamecocks might match up best against Houston, but I don't think you want to play Houston because they're so disciplined on defense that the Gamecocks are going to have to make, 15 threes 18 threes to stay in that game. Just my opinion right now. I mean, that could change. Basketball is a weird game. You could have injuries. You could have a player get sick. You could have a bad night for Houston, a bad night for Purdue, a bad night for UConn. But that's the beauty of a single elimination tournament, because when you're not the number one seed, you're not one of those top 3 teams in the country. You don't have the pressure that they're playing with, because all those teams right now are Final Four, national championship, or bust. And I think that's why you see a lot of these 1 seeds potentially lose against an 8-9 team in the Sweet 16. And we see it all the time. And we've seen, Virginia and Purdue lose to 16 seeds. When that moment gets big and that moment gets difficult, it's hard. I mean, I think that the Gamecocks probably want to avoid those 3 teams if they can. So you got a 25% chance of not being in their region. But I've said this for a while. I think that 4th number 1 seed, and if it's Tennessee, you've already seen the Gamecocks go wire to wire with Tennessee 2 different times this season, home and away. I think if it's North Carolina, I think if it's Arizona, I think, that the number 4 to number 12, 13 team, the last number 1 seed to those number 3 seeds, I think the Gamecocks match up really well against any of them. And that's why I've been a big proponent for a while now that I don't think as a Gamecock fan, you want to be a 4 or 5 seed. You want to be a 3 seed. You want to be a 6 seed. You want to be a 7 seed if you can, because that 3, 6, 7, those seeds play against a 2 seed. And then once you play against a 2 seed, you're going to have to face them eventually, but you're going to be facing them to go to the Elite 8 as opposed to facing a 1 seed potentially in the Sweet 16. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that, I never thought that the Gamecocks were going to get to the Final Four when they did that in 2017 as a 7 seed. They had to go against, a Marquette team that was, plus minus. They were throughout the season kind of shaky. But then I was very worried about South Carolina playing Duke in Charlotte, because Duke fans travel, and there are Duke fans in every corner of this country. And I did not like the chances for the Gamecocks to go through them. But then you had Baylor, and you had Baylor in New York. That worked out very well for the Gamecocks. And then you had Florida, a team you had already played this season at least 2 times that season, I believe. So you had the scout. You knew what you had to do to be successful, and Florida knew what they had to do to be successful to get to a Final Four. So March is crazy. I wouldn't get bogged down in, who the 1 seed is, because things get crazy in March. They get weird. They get pretty weird, man. So looking through here, Craig says, James, I'd say UConn. Yeah, Craig, I don't know if you're talking about who you do or don't want to match up with UConn. I would say you don't want to match up with them. Craig also says if Zach can develop a 3, he's going to be nasty next year. Yeah, Zach is a guy that's going to, he's going to be shooting a million threes this offseason. He's going to be shooting every day in the gym. He already has that athleticism. He already has the explosiveness. I mean, you saw what he did against Mississippi State earlier or on Saturday. Sorry, I'm got to do a text really quick. So, you kind of see what the Gamecocks have at their disposal going forward. And I think that, looking forward, I'm guilty of it. I look forward all the time. I try and look 2-3 years down the line, but I think I'm just going to try and enjoy this one right here. But Phil, let's take a break real quick, and then we'll come back after these messages from our sponsors.
Don't miss this, the final taping of Season 1 of the Southern Songwriters Series with Patrick Davis is Friday, March 22nd in the Chappelle Auditorium at Allen University in Columbia. Patrick will be joined by renowned national artists and songwriters David Ryan Harris, Sean Mullins, and Drew Holcomb in this national made-for-TV event that will be broadcast on over 300 stations in the U.S. this summer. Tickets are available at southernsongwriters.com. VIP and general admission seats are available, but are moving quickly. Go see one of South Carolina's proudest musical sons, Patrick Davis, alongside a national cast of elite performers. Visit southernsongwriters.com. That's southernsongwriters.com. The Southern Songwriters Series with Patrick Davis, Friday, March 22nd at Allen University in Columbia.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Quality that is guaranteed.
Tartan Day South, built by Culpeper Wood, is the largest Tartan Day celebration in the Southeast. Friday, April the 5th, 3 great Celtic rock bands perform at the Lexington Amphitheater. Saturday, April 6th, it's the main event at the historic Columbia Speedway in Casey, featuring Highland games, Celtic dance, music, and food, featuring exhibits like sheepdog herding, birds of prey, and classic British cars at the largest Tartan Day celebration in the Southeast. Get your tickets now at tartandaysouth.com.
So back after that, those words from our sponsors, just want to give everyone a quick heads up. I've been texting with Eric all night, and Eric is one of the hardest working guys in the logistics business. He was all ready to come on at 9 p.m., and then he had some noise in the background. They were unloading one of the trucks, and he was trying to find a quiet spot. So Eric is trying to get here as soon as he can, but I just told him if we need to reschedule, we'll definitely do that. I want to talk to Eric not only about his career at South Carolina, which is, very illustrious, a Hall of Famer, all of that. But at the same time, with all these Gamecocks are going through right now with the combine, the NFL draft, and Eric's been a really good friend of mine for over 10 years. I'll tell you a quick story. I met Eric freshman year of college, and I'd met Terrence Campbell at orientation. And I went up to Eric and said, "Hey, what's up, Terrence? How you doing? Remember me?" And he was like, I'm not Terrence." So pretty funny. That's how we met. We became really good friends. And he actually runs a logistics company now out of Atlanta. So his nights are kind of crazy, as you can imagine. But trying to get him on, we'll see if it works out. But I told him, give me 5 more minutes, and if it doesn't work, we'll just reschedule it. But can't wait to get him on the show. He's going to be a fantastic guest. And I think everyone will be really interested to hear, what it's been like since finishing his career at South Carolina, playing the NFL, the CFL. He's got three children now, so he's a full-time dad, and he's working just like all of us. So, but back to some of the Gamecock sports that are happening right now. Just pulled up an update. South Carolina is up 4-3 at Georgia State right now. That game's being played in North Augusta. Haven't had a chance to watch much of this one tonight with the show and everything and prepping, but I know that the Gamecocks were down. They were down early in that game. So Carolina was up 1-0 after the second inning. In the third inning, Georgia State was up 2-1. After the fourth, the score stayed the same, 2-1. Gamecocks tied it up in the fifth at 2-2. Sixth inning, Gamecocks took a 4-2 lead. And the seventh inning, Georgia State got one back, made it 4-3, and 4-3 after the eighth inning. So we're all on pins and needles right now with that particular game. But I want to talk quickly, and I know this has been talked about ad nauseum at this point. It was a pretty tough environment Sunday for the Lady Gamecocks playing against the LSU Tigers. I've seen all the national stuff. It made political shows. It made national media, sports media was talking about it absolutely nonstop. And look, I think that if the referees are going to allow physical play to happen against a team like LSU, who, say what you want, sometimes it seems like they play a little bit more physical and a little more nasty than a lot of other teams out there. I think that, frustration boiled on both sides. And especially when you think about LSU, who have lost 16 straight to the Gamecocks, I just feel like they felt the game slipping away, and then they decided that they were going to, be nasty. And I don't think that, what Camilla did was called for, but at the same time, I understand it. One of my biggest regrets ever in high school was in a rivalry game, South Florence versus West Florence, and I got one technical foul in my entire career. And I like to say I'm one of the nicest guys in the world, but I got a technical foul, and it was actually Brandon Bostic, who played in the NFL, played for the Packers, played for West Florence, and we were getting after it all game, and he said something to me, and I threw a ball in his face during a scrum, just right over my shoulder, and I got a technical, and it was something that I regretted. And I think that's what Camilla is probably feeling right now. I believe that she's going to be suspended for the first game of the NCAA tournament. Is it fair? I don't know. I mean, I didn't play college basketball. Didn't have another game after that high school senior night. So I probably would have got suspended too. But I think when things get heated in a rivalry game, and I think when things get, where the referees can probably make a difference in the game and they don't, that's what you're going to see happen. So I think that, Dawn Staley's been nothing but class since that entire game. I can't say the same thing for Kim Mulkey. I think that Kim Mulkey, if she had a little bit of time to think about what she said, she might have said some things a little bit differently, but I'm not in her head. I can't say that. I know that the Gamecocks probably want to play LSU again. I'm sure LSU wants to play South Carolina again. I don't know if LSU is going to be a 1 seed. I know that, South Carolina, Iowa, probably going to be the top 2 seeds, with South Carolina being number 1. And, the Gamecock team the women's team has been fantastic. I know that Dawn Staley said that she was a little bit upset that some of the players that were ejected were not able to cut down the nets at the SEC tournament. And that's tough. That's just tough. But I think that she said she's going to find a gym, and it might even be this Sunday at Colonial Life Arena, where they're going to have the fans able to come watch the selection show. And, a little birdie told me that potentially they may be cutting down nets at Colonial Life Arena to celebrate that SEC championship win. And I think that's a really good thing for the women. I think it's a really good thing for Gamecock fans to celebrate. So if you can get out to CLA Sunday night, I think that, you'll be really excited to see what happens. And so that's exciting. The women just are the class of women's college basketball. They have been for the better part of the last decade, despite, only having, I think, 2 national championships. But it's not stopping at South Carolina. I mean, they were supposed to reload this year. It's supposed to be a down year. And what they do, they went undefeated. But anyway, I'm going to have to reschedule Eric. He just texted me and said that he's got to stay by the truck as they unload it, and it's just too loud right now. He tried to join at 9, but we told him to hold off. We do some basketball stuff while they unloaded the truck. But anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all sticking around. I appreciate y'all being a part of the show tonight. I can't wait to have Eric on a little bit later. And, next week probably won't be Eric. We're going to have a lot of college basketball to break down once we get the bracket. We'll talk about everything from where the Gamecocks got seated, where they should have been seated, where, they're going to play, talk about if they're Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday, their road to the Sweet 16, their road to the Elite 8, Final 4, potential national championship. And I'm so excited to have that conversation with all of y'all. So we'll do a lot about the Gamecocks. probably, I don't know. If I have to talk to Phil, I don't know if it'll be Monday or Tuesday night. It might need to be Tuesday night, but I'll talk to Phil and see what his schedule looks like. But we'll figure all that out, and I'll give you, about 30 minutes on the Gamecocks and what it looks like for them, for their path to a potential NCAA tournament championship. And then we'll give some bracket insight and, help you guys in your bracket pools at the office with your family, friends, your family bracket pools, all of that, because one of my favorite things to do every single year is predict the bracket. I always make one bracket. I make one bracket, and then I'm in another bracket pool where you can pay an extra $10 to get a second bracket. So I make one bracket that I put everywhere and a second one with some variations on it. We'll talk about all of that, and hopefully I help you win some of your bracket pools. So enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the SEC tournament. Obviously, remember, starts Thursday, anywhere between 2:30, 3 o'clock is when you should expect that first game against the winner of Arkansas Vanderbilt. And it's tournament season, so it's a winner go home time for the SEC, and then obviously the NCAA the following week. So excited for all of this, and excited for having all of you join me tonight. And again, I apologize that Eric had some stuff pop up that was unplanned, but we'll get him back on. And as always, I appreciate y'all's time. You guys give me the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. Spending this hour once a week with me means so much to me, and I can't tell you from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate it. So thank you so much. And the Gamecocks got a lot of stuff going for them the rest of the season in both women's and men's basketball and baseball. We're still tracking that game right now. And before you know it, they announced today spring practice schedule. So we'll have everything locked in for you guys. We'll be talking about the Gamecocks and just really excited for how the rest of this spring and summer plays out. So thank you all again for your time, and hope you have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.